Oh my lord, just watching this part makes me feel really old. Sure, it's been a long time since I've seen this one. Hey everyone, Zirion here. The US president elections are happening right now, so I thought that was a perfect excuse to talk about the appeal of parody fiction, at least from my perspective. Using one of the first visual novels I played way back when I was starting to get into the genre. That of course being My Girlfriend is the President, a visual novel eroge by Alcott, who has been making visual novels for quite a while now. I'd say since 2003. Honestly, not the greatest, but I have some nostalgia for the title. I'm not too familiar with most of Alcott's games, so I'm not going to pretend to be, and instead we're just going to focus on today's topic. Here's a fun question. Feel free to take a guess on when My Girlfriend is the President came out. Here's a hint. The catchphrase you just heard it during the intro of the main heroine is "Yes, we can," and her last name is Ohama. If it isn't extremely obvious, My Girlfriend's the President came out pretty much soon after Obama became president. I can't believe I'm here on a visual novel related video talking about the president of USA 12 years ago, especially since the US is also on the cusp of a new election right now, but there you go. The second thing that this little factoid reveals is that, if it also isn't already obvious from the title, that My Girlfriend is the President is a comedy visual novel based on parody. I've said this before, but I am a pretty big fan of absurd comedy, and parody-based humor usually is completely full of that, absolutely nonsensical situations making fun of existing properties. I love shows like Gintama, Sato no Hanayome, games like Rants, and stuff like that, and I would like to explain a tiny bit of why people like myself enjoy absurd and parody comedy, using My Girlfriend is the President as the basis. So if you are someone who thinks this kind of humor is just plain dumb, maybe you'll see a bit more of why some of us enjoy it, and if not, that's fine too. I'll also talk about the visual novel itself as well. Since I already mentioned my relative inexperience with Alcott, we can just skip straight along to the premise of the story. In the year 20XX, a spaceship from outer space crash lands into the office of the Prime Minister of Japan, turning him into a pixelated mess of bits and killing him instantaneously. In order to fix this problem, the aliens choose a random girl nearby to replace this very important individual and implants a brainwashing chip inside of her. Overnight, Japan adopts the presidential system, and the main character's childhood friend, Ohama Yukino, becomes the president of Japan, with the main character Hondo Junichiro becoming the VP. Now if this sounds ridiculously stupid, yeah of course it is. It's a parody visual novel, what do you expect? The main heroines are Irina Vladimirovna Putina, a parody of Putin, and Ohama, a parody of Obama, along with two others, Miyoshi Ran and the starship Ezekiel. The first thing I want to talk about, using My Girlfriend as the President, is the idea of pacing and tone in a story that relies heavily on absurdist comedy or parody. This might sound strange to some people, but I think works of parody have their work, I know that was bad, cut out for them when it comes to balancing this. I imagine most people, especially ones who dislike this sort of humor, usually see these kind of stories as just super loud, obnoxious, and kind of brain dead. That the tone remains this fast-paced, grating mess. And while sometimes that is the case, I think one of the greatest strengths a work of parody has is that because the vast majority of their tone is this high-octane comedy, it makes all the other moments in the story that much more striking. The emotional moments, the slightly off moments, the badass moments, these moments stick out all the more in these kind of stories because they are surrounded by all of this haha funny stuff, which allows them to be that much stronger and more memorable. Really good parody works make use of this power of the shift in tone. You see this all the time in Gintama, where even though the Yoruzuya is goofing off all the time, there are points when Gintoki and the rest of the gang suddenly get their badass fight scenes that are legitimately super cool and well animated, or they have their emotional moments where they stop clowning around and you really feel it. Plenty of visual novels have done this as well, stuff like Hatoful Boyfriend, you know, the meme one about dating pigeons, because the story is so inherently ridiculous, a human dating pigeons, it makes all the slightly off things in the game, like the fact that the main character passes by a ruined city on the way home and lives in a cave, that much weirder. The moments when the visual novel suddenly turns dark becomes all that much more darker. At the same time, these parody works can't just keep on flip-flopping between the tones however they want, because if they did that, then the emotional moments will lose their impact or become ham-fisted. And that's why I say parody stories have the work cut out for them, because they have to balance this tone. And since the scale is inherently weighted on one end already, it's really tough for a writer to know how much they can add before it ruins that balance. Flipping a serious moment again and again like they do in Gintama several times can be really funny. Flip it too many times, however, and it might just ruin the whole work as a whole. Now, I think when you don't make use of this potential contrast, that's when you get a parody work that is completely awful like the ones I mentioned earlier. Stuff like the KFC dating visual novel that was popular about a year ago, where it's constantly running this super high octane, look at me, I'm super quirky, dumb jokes, blah 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 blah. You can try to be funny all you like, but if there's nothing of substance underneath, then that fast-paced tone is quickly gonna wear out its welcome and the reader's patience. Bringing this back to My Girlfriend's the President, we have to ask the question of, how does it fare with this in mind? And I think My Girlfriend's the President is an excellent example of being straight dab in the middle. While I ain't no KFC dating sim and that it doesn't even bother to try to apply this concept, and it's just a brainless mess the entire way through with absolutely no substance, it also ain't no Gintama in the sense that it's a little too afraid to let these moments breathe sometimes. The emotional moments, while they exist at times, feel like they could put a little bit more time into each one of them before they hop right back into trying to make a joke every few seconds. Still, My Girlfriend's the President at least makes the effort to try, and that makes things a little more interesting. I will say, some of the final fight scenes, while they certainly aren't that cool by any means, are alright even with the massive amount of messing around they do. Then again, a G Gundam parody in any work of fiction would probably make me like that work of fiction that much more, because I love that show. It might sound like I'm calling out this visual novel as just being so-so, but there is stuff to appreciate. While it doesn't do anything crazy special, the balancing between the slice of life portions against the wacky comedy works well. Although this visual novel doesn't have any dramatic scenes that really utilize the power of that change in tone, the flow they do have going on is pretty comfy, where it's essentially slice of life scenes punctuated by some crazy comedy every now and then. Even if nothing grandiose happens that makes this one particularly stick out, I still found it relatively enjoyable, even if sometimes the story just kinda gets nonsensical for the express purpose of being nonsensical. It's tough for me to say that much more than that, because honestly, I do like parody comedy, so while I acknowledge it probably is pretty dumb, a small part of me enjoys it. I think the slice of life portion does a solid job of tempering the constant wackiness, so that when they start tossing out the you watch shock references and the like, it comes across as more of a pleasant surprise than just being entirely grating. With all of that said, yes, I mean there's quite a bit of it. Jokes are abound everywhere in this visual novel. The last part of parody I want to bring up is that, outside of the pure funny recognition purposes, parody-based comedy can also be used as a method to critique the topic they are referencing, by exaggerating or twisting our preconceived notions of, say, the relationship between two leaders of major powers. It can serve as a way to comment on that sort of thing, highlighting perhaps hidden sides through over-the-top caricatures and the like. Now, for what I've just said, you might assume that I might be insinuating that My Girlfriend the President has this sort of thing. No, not really. But it has been done in other parody works. This visual novel, at its heart, is a pretty straightforward comedy, completely driven by the interactions of the main characters, well, mostly our main boy Junichiro interacting with the four main heroines. I like Hondo Junichiro as a main character. As for why, let me just describe him and it'll be obvious from there. The fastest way to describe him is a pervert with a heart of gold. Outside of sexually harassing everyone close to him, he is surprisingly tough, capable, and cares greatly for everyone he knows. If anyone has watched my City Hunter video, that description might sound mighty familiar, and that's why I said again that me liking him is mostly coming from a nostalgia factor. His constant harassment, penchant for making jokes, and surprising capability in protecting his loved ones is something I can appreciate. As for the heroines, they are, cute. Yukino Ohama is pretty much a ditzy childhood friend. Irina is kind of a tsundere, except that she's already leaning on the data part from the start. Edu-chan is the soft-spoken, eccentric spaceship, and Ran is the doting elder sister type. Again, I'm not saying they're bad by any means per se, but they don't really stick out to me in any real way. If I had to pick a favorite, Ran? Not just because she's got the biggest personality, but also, you know me, short hair, confident types who can put up and even counter the main character's perverted advances is what I'm always a fan of. Urza. As for something I can appreciate, I do enjoy how animated the sprites are in this game for the characters. The standing poses have some fun reaction faces. The choice system is really weak in the sense that you just make one choice and then BAM! And then you are on that character's route from beginning to the end. Pretty simple. Oh, and also, in what I presume to be an Alcott staple, there are cute chibi CGs everywhere, and stuff like that I'm always a fan of. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say with regards to My Girlfriend's the President. The reason why I wanted to tackle the appeal of parody this time around is because I think My Girlfriend the President is a great example of pretty much being in the middle. Not particularly outstanding in any department, but definitely not bad either. I also didn't have any real strong opinions about the visual novel itself, so I thought this would be a much more interesting topic to tackle. I do have a load of nostalgia for it, and playing it again after nearly a decade for this video was honestly a better time than I expected it being, mostly because I was expecting not very much. Anyhow, the like button is down there if you enjoy the content, subscribe if you want to support me, notification all buttons to keep up to date on when my next video comes out, and here's my Twitter handle if you want to follow me there. Alright, that's it for My Girlfriend's the President, but stick around if you want to hear a bit of why I was gone for a while. Thanks for sticking around. Going to be frank, I got sick for a while as I mentioned on my Twitter at ZirionVN, but right after I got marginally better, I kinda lost serious motivation to do anything for a while. I can't say I'm completely better on that front, still kind of feeling a little bit like, funky, off, but I plan on jumping back into things and see how it works out. Anyways, here are 2 more of my videos, and I hope to see all of you soon. Till next time.